All right. We are going to get into chapter 7, lists and tuples. And another word for these are essentially array. It's an array. It's a special type of array called a hash table, and with key value pairs, also indexing. And we're going to get into playing around with some code here on your assignment, which is the driver's license exam. So we're going to get into the PowerPoints. Then we're going to get into debugging. That's one of your assignments. I'm going to give you an example of debugging, and then we're going to do a license exam starter today. So we got a lot, and I don't want to go over more than an hour. So the PowerPoints, I'm not going to put a lot of significant time into. However, let's go through some of the information here of what a list is for a sequence, and what a sequence is, or a list. Otherwise, we call it an array. It's a list of items together. And here's the thing: is in memory they're actually contiguous, meaning that they're in order. So you can have one number in RAM, and then the next number is directly adjacent in the same address space as the next item in your array. So you can have arrays or sequences of multiple items of data. And those items can be, anything. They could be strings, integers, doubles, floats, or even when you get into object-oriented programming, objects. We're going to start with just the beginning of working with a list. And know that a tuple is just a list. It's a special list that you can't add or remove from, and that is because a tuple is a list that is set up to not be mutable, meaning you can't change it, so that it's more efficient. It's faster. They can make the list faster if it's a tuple than you would have for a list that a normal list. And so mostly what you'll be doing is working with lists. Tuples are just lists that can't change, so that they are more efficient and faster. Okay, so when we work with a list, we're going to decide that we want a list of something, and we give it a name, and we can use different let's actually get into it. Let's play with some of this bit here, and but the idea of the list of items, that you can have a list of even numbers or a list of strings. And here's the thing about lists that are really cool, is that unlike an array in other languages, even though, I'm saying a list is an array, this is a special type of list that can handle mixed data types. So you can actually have, from figure 7.3, you can actually have in your first element of your list a string, a second element, a whole another different type of number, an integer, and then the third element, which is a floating point value. So when you create a list, often what you want is you want to be able to process that list. And that's where you do when you do a repetition over a list. So basically that is can be done. There's more than one way to do it. But the way that we use it mostly is with the for each statement, for x in list. In other languages, they call that for each. So let's look at your assignment, and let's go ahead and get started on your assignment as we go through the PowerPoints, and get you set up for a list of license numbers and printing those license numbers. What I always like to do is, when I'm working with data types and memory, is I like to create my memory, fill my memory, and then print my memory before I do anything with it. So your main job as a programmer is to work with memory, to RAM, to work with RAM, random access memory. as part of your process, and then you'll use that memory and process that memory to complete a job. So let's go ahead and get into Visual Studio Code, and we'll get started on that that one assignment. And there's going to be a point where I'm going to leave it off to you guys, but I'll give you kind of a beginning point. And I'm going to use Visual Studio Code here, and I'm also going to use Visual Studio Code to show you how to do a breakpoint and whatnot. So I'm going to go with a new file, and this one, once I get started, let's just do it. Let's just take care of this real quick. Desktop. I'm not even going to title it. Okay. So let's look at your assignment and then kind of what we need to do with that. So we got our driver's license exam, and we need to have some correct answers in our exam as a list. And here are the correct answers of our exam in the list. So what we want to do is we want to create a list with these items inside of it. And then we'll have another list that we read from a file that has the questions. And so we're going to get into that too. So let's look at the PowerPoint and actually how to create a list. And then we're going to actually sort through those. It doesn't look like they give us a good example of creating a list. You know what? Let's do this. Let's do a Google real quick for Python list. And we'll use that as a starting point for what we're going to work with. Okay, so you see here is the list. Now you see that the interpreter knows here that this is a list because you're assigning it with this code right here. And it knows that my list is a list. But if you want to create a list that's empty, you just put the brackets around it. And that's actually the list that we're going to create when we read in the information from a file. Is going to be an empty list. And then we're going to compare the two lists, the student scores in the file to the scores that are the correct answer scores. But first we're just going to get a list of the correct answers. And then we want to print that list. And then we're going to want to open a file and read in that information. So what we're going to do is we're going to use that for each statement and kind of get caught up to where we're at in PowerPoint. So let's go into our Visual Studio Code, and let's say answers equals, and if I want it just to be a normal empty list, I can do that. But since I actually want some answers in there, let's go in and let's put in those correct answers. They don't have to be exactly as they are in here. You can put your own correct answers in if you wish, but it looks like these are correct answers. We're going to inject those inside of here. And then what we're going to do is we're going to surround those with commas. And I believe we got to put double quotes around, or single quotes or double quotes around them. We'll do single quotes because I'm treating them more like a character array, but Python doesn't really matter. So this is going to be my list of correct answers. And then what I want to use is I want to use that for each statement. I'm going to print this list using the for each statement. Okay, and as we progress, we'll get into reading from a file of your test answers, and then I'm going to leave it up to you because I'm just going to get it so that it's printing the information. Remember, get your memory, print your memory. Okay, and this is kind of onerous, but I guess maybe I can do. Could be a little simpler, but that's fine. This is just creating a hard-coded list for us to use as a comparison for our correct answers. All maybe get that done a little bit quicker. Okay, and then put my, I think I have to have semicolons in there. Yeah, I do. I'm pretty sure I do. That's what eliminates them. Okay, that should work fine. Okay, so remember the goal here is to get your memory and print your memory. Okay, so we have our memory. We've created this list of answers. So now that we have our memory, we've created our memory, let's print our memory, and so that we know that we have it. You don't want to get too far ahead of things without testing. For X in answers. Now what this does is it'll assign X to A first in the loop. Then it goes and assigns X to C. And then it goes and assigns X to A. And then what we're going to do is we're just going to print each of those values. Get your memory, print your memory. And that's it. That's as far as we need to go for this. Let's go ahead and just test it and run without debugging. I'm going to demo debugging with you too here. That's on the list of our goals today. I want to see my actual output though. There it is. Okay. Okay, so it looks like my output worked. So the printing statements happened. Here's everything that I printed right there. So that means I have my memory. We're good. So we've got our answers, and now we print that memory. So that's kind of the beginning of your list. Now let's go back into here and continue on down. You could do certain things such as list indexing, meaning that you can use numerical values to work with what's in the list. So specifically, you can denote a specific item in the list using its index. So with arrays, the indexing starts at 0. So you're always 0 based with an array, and it goes up until less than the size of the array. So you could actually write this for loop a little bit different. For in range, for I in range, and then we're going to do 20 here because there's 20 items. So that means I is going to go from 0 to 19 because remember the range is exclusive. So I is going to start at 0 and go up to 19. This is the 0th coordinate of the array. The last one is the 19th coordinate of the array. So remember, 0 is actually number 1 in programming. So this is another way that we can print our array. But here is the difference. We want to print, and instead of saying that we want X to represent each item in answers, let's go in and print the answers using our indexing. Answers of I, and this will just go ahead and print the items that we have just like the above line worked, but instead we're using the indexing, and you can just do print answers of 0 here, and that will print the A, or you can go through a loop and print them all. Okay, so you see our output here was our A. Here's our last output, our A, which is this print right here, answer of 0. So you use indexing to access your items in your list. And you use that with the variable name of your list, your subscript operator, the 2 brackets, and then you put a number inside, and that references the item that's actually in the list. So this is going for your answers, your first answer, which is A. Your second answer is answer of 1. That's actually number 2, not number 1, because arrays always start at 0. And that's something true for every language. Okay, so the len function will give you an idea of, hey, how big is your list? So what you'll do is you could actually say, hey, instead of hard coding at a range of 20, you can say, well, go to the length of my answer list. And the answer list will return 20 because the length of your answer list is 20. And that's no longer hard coding to, because maybe you have more than 20 items in your list. So this is the proper way of doing it. Okay, so lists can be changed with the index. Concatenating lists, yes, you can concatenate one list to the other using the plus operator just like you do with strings. You have the ability to slice certain items out of the list with a start and an end and assign it to another list. So you could do something like this. Let's take and let's create another list called A is equal to answers. And then what we'll slice is we'll say go from 0 to the 10th item. And what that'll do is it will take and create a new list called A that has the first 10 items in the list. So you're saying go and copy the answers list from index 0 to index 10. I can't remember. I'm pretty sure this is inclusive. This is exclusive. That's normal. So it will go from 0 to 9. I think the second one is exclusive. So it'll go from 0 to 9 instead of 0 to 10. And that's what I mean by inclusive and exclusive. If I say this number is inclusive, that means it takes 0, starts at 0, and goes into the end, including the number here. So when I say this number is exclusive, that means it goes up until the number right below 10. Meaning, basically 0 to 9, because that's 10 numbers. And the reason why we do that inclusive exclusive is because we do treat arrays as 0 based. So 0 is actually number 1. So usually your first number is inclusive, and the first number, if you want to go 10 items all the way up to index 9, you would put 10. If you want to go up to index 8, you would put 9. If you want to go up to index 7, you would put 8. That's the whole exclusive idea, is to handle with that little issue of off by 1 error, because our arrays start at 0 instead of 1. Because that's the way it is in the real world. Even in all your math classes, the 0 is implied with most functions. Okay, so that takes us into a little bit more on finding an items in the list with the in operator. So what you can do is you can say, hey, is this item in the list? If A is in the list, then it's going to return true. So what you can do is you can do something like, let's say, if in answer. So what that's going to do is, this is an if statement that's going to run true if they find the letter A anywhere in this answer list. Okay, you append, index, items. You guys can get into that because I want to get more into, I don't want to get too far into our hour. You can use some other list methods such as inserting and sorting. Remove, you can insert at a specific index in the list. Let's say that I wanted to insert an item between this B and C. So I could use the insert function to insert in between those two if I wished. And then, of course, your sort and remove functions. You can also reverse the order. And these are some of the functions that you have available to you as a list, or as part of the list object. Okay, I'm going to get into processing lists. We've just started that with the for statements there. That's how you process the list, is these two for statements that I showed you in here. This one right here, and then this one right here will process that whole list. That means it will visit every item that's in the list where you can make a decision to do something with it. In this case, we are just printing the item. We're not doing much of anything with it. Okay, and then you can have two-dimensional lists. Now, this is one thing that you guys won't have much of or see much of. However, when you do use two-dimensional lists, your indexing goes to multi-dimensions. And you would use now 2 square brackets to access a list that is, say, 3 by 3 items. That means it's 3 rows and 3 columns. And for that type of list, you would use 2 for statements to process through. I don't want to get too far into that because I would rather show you, get into showing you some, we'll come back to this one maybe a little bit after debugging to play with if we have enough time. If not, I would prefer getting a text file with some scores in. So what we want to do is we want to read scores in a text file and put them in a list. And that's the thing that most students have a big issue with for this particular assignment in this chapter. So that's why I'm going to work with you on that. And we're going to go to my folder that has my file that has untitled.py in it, which is my desktop. So I'm going to go here and I'm going to create a new file. And I'm going to go ahead and do file save all. And I'm going to actually save this one as license. Just lick.py, fine. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to create a folder just for this because you want your text file to be in the same folder as what you're going to be reading in, because you don't want to have to tell it to go to C drive or whatever. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to create a new folder, and I'm going to call it license, and then that's where my license py file is going to go that I'm going to open up for editing. But here is where I'm going to add a new file, and this is going to be a text document, and this is going to be my score. Score for student score. Okay, so we just want it to read a text file that has student scores. Make sure you got view right here, details or view file name extensions so that you don't have a .text problem. So you want to make sure you have view file name extensions on there, because if you don't, you could possibly call this score student.text.text, and you wouldn't know, and you wouldn't be able to open it up from your Python file. So I'm going to put 20 scores in here, and I'm gonna make them new line. Essentially, I'm going to use the new line as a delimiter here. So I'm going to go with 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Let's just take these and duplicate them in the file. So I have my 20, and that's going to be my. This is going to represent the student score file that I'm going to be reading in. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to read them in, and I want to print them. So remember, I just want to get my memory, print my memory, then I can start using it. So I don't want this open when I'm reading it in from the file. So I'm going to go ahead and close that. So now I'm going to read in, I'm going to write the code to read in student scores. And my only goal for this is to be able to print those student scores. That's it. That's all I care about. And specifically, I want to print them individually. Because if you're just printing them in one big clump, it's not really showing me that you can access them one at a time as I show you here, which is the goal of this assignment, is to be able to do that so you can compare the two scores, one from the file and one not. So what we're going to do is we're going to read a Python text file, and we're probably going to use the split method. Python read text file. I could get into your book, but I'm just going to throw in something. Okay, so with open as f read lines. We could do the read lines function. We could do the whole read function. You know what we could do is we could just say open as f. Okay, we can do something like this, and then we can do read lines, And what that's going to do is it's going to read all the lines into a string. The thing is we need this to be a list eventually. So let's just print it as a string first. Then we will make it into a list as we're reading it in. So let's get our memory and print our memory from the file. And notice that my student score.txt, score student.txt is in the same folder. Score student.txt, score student.txt, okay, as F, and then F is our file pointer. So we use that to represent the file to read the lines from the file. And then I can do something like print lines. But that's not really, it's just printing the whole string of lines. So it's not really getting it in the format that we need because it's reading them in as a string. We got to read them in as a string, but then convert it and add it to the list that we're going to hold so that we can compare them. So I just want to see, hey, am I able to open the file and print the lines from the file? Is that so? What I'm going to do is I'm going to comment these out. And what we're going to do is we're going to run without debugging, and we got no such file directory score student.txt. Okay, so what I want to do now is I want to look at my folder and see if I actually spelled that correctly. Score student.txt. Scores student.txt. That's interesting. Let me do this. Control C. Okay, score student, Control Z. .txt. Okay, let's see if it does the same problem. Start debugging. Oh wait, I don't want to debug yet. We're going to do that here in a little bit. Okay, so it looks like I'm having a problem finding my file, score student.txt. And this is a normal thing. So what I want to do is I want to do a save, and I'm going to go ahead and close this down, and I want to make sure that I'm opening up my license.py from the folder that has score student.txt. And I want to make sure, hey, is my view show file name extensions? So view show file name sections, file name extensions. And now I'm going to open up this guy and I'm going to test it again. And let's see if we can't open it. Oh, yep. I was actually using a different license.py. I was using the one that I actually had in my desktop. And see, that's the thing that you got to watch out for when you're working with code and files and stuff. Is I was actually here in the desktop using this one that I put out here. And if you see here, there is no student score.txt in my desktop because I put it in my tester, my folder, my license folder here. So I was actually editing the wrong license.py. I was doing this one, and so you'll find that problem. So you got to make sure that you are editing the py file that is with your student score file. It's the most common mistake that I see students making. Okay, so now you understand kind of why I tell you, get your memory, print your memory. Because you get nothing working, then you'll be like, oh no, what's going on? Well, it's not even reading your file, dude. You know? Okay, run without debugging. Let's see. Okay. Okay, so it looks like you see that it printed each one, but you see that it has that \n in it. That's because that's the new line character from the file. And what we got to do, and it looks like it's the read lines function actually reads in the list and converts it into a list for us. That's what that read lines function is doing, is converting it to a list for us. What we could do is we could read each line and do a strip, a dot strip, dot r strip, dot r strip our split. There's a way to strip our strip to strip there's a way to strip the \n from the read lines function. So since the read lines function is returning a list, so you see here that I just hovered over it, it says method read lines int. Look at what it returns, list. It returns a list. So we can use this read lines to get the list for us. We don't have to read in each item and add it to the list. We could do that if we wanted to. We could do a read line and add it to the list, another read line and add it to the list, another read line and add it to the list, or we could just do this, the whole read lines that reads all the lines into one list called lines here. Let's rename this to scores. And let's look for a \n, how to strip a \n from a string. So Python strip new line from string. I imagine, line.rstrip right there. There it is. Okay, so that's going to be, we're going to use that for our list. And so it'll be .rstrip. So I wonder if we can do that afterward. We can just say scores is equal to, I don't know, I don't think this is going to work, but we'll see. Python surprises me in some things. And then we're going to print our scores. So let's see if we can get that \n out of everything. I think it might. It might actually work. Let's check it out. Okay, I'm thinking that we got some problems. Oh, I did debugging. Object has no rstrip. Yeah, I didn't think that would work. Yeah. So what we need to do is we need to put it here. Because it's based on a string, you can't add the strip to a list. It won't work. Okay, so let's do this. \n and get rid of this line of code, and now we should have our scores read into a list that we can use to compare. Oh, that's right, because we're returning. Nope, we're going to have to do an intermediary here then. You know what? Let's do this. That's easy. Let's do the read line. Then let's do another loop that will go through the list. For x in scores, then what we're going to do is we're going to say x is equal to x dot strip rstrip with our \n. That will probably get us our list without the new line character in it, so that we can then compare. But we may have some more issues here, and I may have to hit a pause. Okay, there we go. That's what was wrong. The indenting nightmare, yeah. Okay, so for x in scores, x is equal to x dot r strip. I think what we can do, there's going to be a different, you guys might find a way of doing this that's better, but what I can do is I can print x here and add it back to the list after I've stripped it. So what we can do is let's just get rid of this print scores. We read the line and then let's go ahead and, okay, there we go. So we strip it. So now what we're going to do is we're going to do this. We're going to say every time that we have a new x, let's create, this is just reading in the scores from the file. Then we go through each score from the file and strip the new line out of it. And then what we do is we can now add this to a list that I'm going to create up here. And I'm going to call this LST scores. And this is where I'm going to do it empty. Oops, well, I got some kind of new, okay, that's really weird. My keyboard went hairy, but okay, so I'm going to do this empty. And then I am going to use it to store X that's been stripped. So then I'm going to say LST scores is equal to LST scores dot append X. And now when we print LST scores, we've now loaded the scores from the file. And let's see if this LST scores will print what we're reading from the file. And then if we've got our score list and our answer list, then we just need to compare them with another for statement. And that's what I'm going to leave for you guys. So let's just go ahead and print. I'm going to get it so that we print the answers. Here's how we print the answers. There's that. Then I want to print each individual score. So I'm going to do the same thing here, but for scores. I'll just type it out. For in range, let's just do len of LST scores. And then this is my get your memory, print your memory. It's going to be for I. We're going to use I to access that the subscript of that array. Then what I'm going to do is I'm going to say print LST scores of I. And then that should give us our list of scores from the file. And then I've gotten you to where most students have a problem. And that is just getting the information from the file. And then we're going to get into some other things. It looks like we got list scores dot append. I think I might need to do maybe do it that way. Okay, so it's having a problem concatenate a list to list. So what I need is to work with the append method here and get that one working. You know what? I'm gonna go ahead and do some of the research on that, so I'm not sitting here wasting some of your time on the video. I'm gonna hit stop and come back and shortly after I've solved this issue, and then we can continue on. Okay, so we're back, and what we have is a minor fix to this bit of a problem. And what it is this list scores.append of X. And it works well. And what it'll do is it'll strip the new lines from the scores you read in from the read line. And then it will append it to your list of scores. So this whole thing, what it does, all it does is read the information from the file and puts it in the list. So it takes all your scores and puts it into the list. And now this part prints the list. Okay, so let's go ahead and let's set a breakpoint and let's debug and look at this. So I'm going to set a breakpoint here. I'm going to say run, start debugging. Okay, what this is going to do is it's going to stop me, and I can look at my globals, and I can see kind of what's going on with things, and I can see how things are behaving as I watch, or my locals and my watches. I can add a watch for list scores if I wanted to, so I can see what list scores has inside of it, and then I can see what's going on. And when I do a step over, I take X. Well, X is currently AN. Okay, and then I step over, and then X becomes A. Then I look at list scores and I append X onto that, and there it is. So you see how it's just building the list for us, and we're seeing it actually move. And that's what my step over is doing, is just I'm looking at my variables and my watches, and I'm seeing this list build itself as I'm watching, and I'm making sure everything's working right. And then I can continue it and finish up by just hitting play and getting rid of the breakpoint. And that's setting a breakpoint, and that's so that you can examine those variables and see what's going on as you progress. So the next thing that you're going to want to do is hey, get your memory, print your memory. So now you have two for loops that run through each list. So what you're going to have to do is let's just have one for loop that goes through one list, and let's compare them. So what you're going to do is you're going to do something like this. You only need one for loop. But what you're going to do is you're going to say, hey, if LST scores of I equals scores of I. That is when you have a correct answer. And then that would be where you would do a correct answer plus plus or something like that. Okay? All right, that pretty much takes you through everything for this particular example. I've given you a debug example. The only thing that I can suggest that you might want to do is to practice walking through or parsing or printing a two-dimensional list using a nested for loop. But we've gone beyond our time. I wanted to give you a good start on your assignment and also discuss the PowerPoints and what lists are. They're essentially called arrays in other languages. Okay. Thank you.